Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories. Hi everyone, it's Bayana and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Today we're reading chapters 34 through 36 of Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. Previously on Wizard Team, the gang crew leaves the safe house that they were at with Jonas that was not so safe and actually heads for the secluded crossroads that Bree learned about from Samira in her notes. After dealing with racism on the road, you gotta love a side quest of racism. They end up at a magically warded bar. But before they can even get inside the door, Cell is affected by this imminent feeling that Nick is in danger, folding over in his body. And Bree tries to reach out to him through her connection with Arthur, but he tells her to get the F out of here. And so that does not work out. Once the danger passes, the group goes into the Crossroads Lounge, which they find out is a rogue den full of magic users of color. Cell has been crabby this whole time, partially probably because of how he is just generally dealing with some things, but also, topped off with the whipped cream, if you will, of Nick being attacked, and complains about the service and is wary of taking an aether shot, even though he sorely needs it, and then ends up starting a bar fight, because isn't that what we all do when we're feeling crabby? That bar fight is then broken up by the lounge's proprietor and broker named Valak, and he wants to know where Bree got her supercharged power, which she used to try to break up the fight, from. Cell tries and then fails to fight Valak because, again, he's in that kind of mood. And then he, because of this, Valak is able to lift the mesmer that Cell has had on Bree, and Bree finally gets a look at Cell, and this is all brought upon by Cell. If he would have just had a Snickers, perhaps we would not be here.
He needed to take that ether shot.
He needed that shot real bad.
Like long ago. He needed it so bad.
He needed it injected into his veins. He didn't even let it digest, just shoot it up.
Straight in the blood. Oh my gosh. So that's where we left off. And the beginning of chapter 34, Sal is looking rough. He's having a hard time. So he looks flushed and fevered. His cheeks are red. He has black veins kind of crawling up from his fingers past his wrist. And then his eyes are on the verge of red. Bree kind of realizes, so she's still drawn to him, but it's very clear that it's it's a part of his magic, I guess, for lack of a better word, but it draws, it's drawing her in, and then the kind of realization comes after that. So it's she's pulled into it and is trying to figure out what she's seeing, and then the betrayal hits and she realizes that he's been mesmering her this whole time.
I mean, she can feel for the boy. You can feel for it. It's hard to distinguish between his magic having influence over her besides her just naturally wanting to help him.
Right. And I think that that's also part of her struggle with this too, is trying to figure out how much of it was her being influenced versus how much of it was what she actually felt, or how much of it was a him versus the demon trying to draw her in. And so she's kind of realizing that almost all of their moments alone, pretty much since the plane, he's been mesmering her, including the whole devourable scene that Robyn was giggling over last episode, which I understand the giggles. It makes a lot of sense. But it's also why he was benched last week.
it was funny to me because I was just like, when I remember everyone going like in the chat, like in the Discord chats about the Devourable scene. I'm like, why did that not stick out to me so much? And then as I reread it, I was like, oh, because I was concerned about like, what magic is at work here? What is happening? Like, why does Valak have? What is this bartender doing? Like, I was so concerned about like the magic system that I was like, oh yeah, sure,
that part just kind of went by. You're like, no, everything else around is like so much more interesting. That's funny. I feel like I definitely felt it when I read it the first time. I was like, oh, like this is doing a lot here. But I also think that like then when you get I don't think it like what's the word? Like I don't think it dampens the scene. Yeah. But I think when you get the like extra context from it, it does sort of shift the perspective a little bit. Which again does not negate like the tension and the like that moment for them, but it does shift things. And so Bree's kind of thinking about all the times that like they were making eye contact, or even the moment where like he was touching her, and like all those moments he was using them to reinforce the mesmer. And so she's like she says, what I thought felt like falling into him, maybe even for him, had been me falling into Cell's illusion. Which again, like you were saying, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's all that was, but now she's struggling to like figure out what was the illusion and what wasn't. And now Valak got what he wanted, which was to hurt Bree to get to Cell. So quite a chaotic person.
It's just funny because it's like everyone needs a Snickers, but also like because of the dynamic between the two Cambions, like it's like y'all really like can't not, and it's so like in the way that y'all are, and it's like, is this your nature to just be this way? Because it's like you could just not, and I don't think y'all see that as an option. I think you see only doing as the option. Like can't never occurs in your head.
And I mean, I feel like that's also why I like Valak so much, in the sense that like he is 100% here for chaos, but he has his own like moral, like compass and like value system that he follows. But within that, it's just chaotic. He's like, yeah, someone needs to suffer. I don't really care how. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be physical. Could be emotional, could be something else. It don't even have to be you, could be the friend. You know what I mean? Like he just is like, and as things go on, he's like entertained by it in a way that's very interesting. But then he does there are a lot of like similarities with Cell, which like Cell is obviously way moodier and has all of the like
also
baggage
younger
that the order and much younger and has all of the baggage that the order gives him. But like it does feel, as much as Valak, like, which we find out like right after that he's a Cambion, but is a balanced Cambion. And he's like real cocky, but that feels like, from the Merlins and like the other Cambions we've seen, pretty par for the course. Like they're just very arrogant and very like confident in their abilities and in their like superiority, and like that's kind of how they move. And then the rest of their personality kind of like shades that in whatever way.
Yeah. It kind of gives me a nature versus nurture question. But like Valak is not at all like nurtured within the same environment as the rest of them. So I'm like, is it nature then? Like,
right?
Is it just competence that you build over time? Like everyone gets a little like, huh? But like it feels like it's like maybe that's a way that they rein in their like nature, their like powers a little bit. It's like like, or their like anxiety around like succumbing to anything is like, okay, let me be like, I gotta celebrate myself as much as possible, even when it's not necessary.
Affirmations. What are the Cambion affirmations?
Like be bold as a. Hey, I just did that. I just put this roll of toilet paper on this thing the best way anybody's ever put roll of toilet paper on a holder. Bet. Like it's just like okay.
Yeah. I wonder if it also has to do with like the level of power that they have too. It's like after, especially for someone like Valak who is like hundreds of years old, it's like you just I feel like yeah, it's like a level of competence that maybe comes with age.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously don't. I mean, I don't know that to be true, but like it
You
could
would,
be.
you would hope, right?
I
You
would
would hope.
hope. Yeah, I hope
Like if you've been
so.
doing something for
But
like
also
hundreds
like
of
and also his power
years.
is way like he is on another level than Cell. Like he is much more powerful, which means he's more powerful than I think he's also used to being the most powerful
In a
in
room.
his, you know what I mean? So I think that
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of like informs that a bit. So yeah, so he Valak is like he says that a Merlin away from his oaths is an ugly thing. And then he calls them unbalanced Cambions, and then again with the arrogance, like unlike me, like I'm special. Which I think he also literally calls himself
I'm so
special at some
special.
point. Um
I feel like this man has to be like or unique. Unique? I think he at least says
unique.
unique.
That's what he is. Yeah,
Because
very much so.
he is when he hears Alien Superstar, that is his theme song. Like
That's
he
his
enters
whole
each room.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's his
He was
jam.
like, that's Beyonce wrote that for me. She met me because we're cool like that and shared the song for
Mhm.
me. Yeah.
So yeah, but he does the in talking about like that we get a little bit more insight into how Cambions work. And so he was talking about how like he's a balanced Cambion because his mother was human, his father was a demon, whereas like most Merlins are really just like it's just that the it's the one drop rule. So literally they're like most Merlins, including Cell, are children of other Merlins. Maybe a Merlin human, maybe two Merlins, but either way, the demon blood is diluted. But it kind of interestingly, instead of the opposite of instead of saying instead of it being like, oh, if you have more demon blood than human, then you succumb to the blood faster. It's like, no, that tiny bit of demon blood that's in your human body does not like being tiny and wants to like take everything over. Um, and I think it I feel like Valak explains it as like a drop of blood in water, where it
Mm-hmm.
tinges the whole thing, but uh it's not equal. And so that's why it makes them imbalanced. It's why they're like so reliant on oaths to keep them together.
I
But
think
I also
unbalanced is such a great word to describe their mental
mhm,
states. Like
yeah, absolutely. And I also wonder how much, because obviously Valak has this like insight, but he also is not inside of the order. He also hates the order, and I
mm-hmm.
can't wait to get into that. But um I do wonder, he does say something maybe a little bit later about Cell's oaths in particular. And so I still like kind of
Mm-hmm.
feel like something is up with these order oaths that are actually making this worse.
Mm. Yeah.
So I'm not
I feel
sure
like
yet, but
there's no
it's a
way
theory.
that like and this is for me what's interesting because I think it's all goes back to like the origin point right of like Merlin and King Arthur, and it's interesting to me that Merlin with all his powers would set up his progeny or his people who are going to like take up after him to be at a deficit to the regular humans slash the magic of
Mhm.
like those like the scions. Like you would think he would put more safeguards in place to have people who are working in his name, like his legacy, not be so dependent on the less magical folk like in the thing. And I think it's interesting that like if the O's are like making it worse, then like he did that. Like he's the one who crafted the magic to make the O's possible. So like if the O's are making part of it, like making the demonia worse, that's Merlin. Like he did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know how much he knew necessarily, or if he even realized that the O's would like necessarily be worse, that they would make it worse.
But I feel like they set up Merlin, but I think this is something they do to. I say they. I think Tracy does this, but I think like in the fantasy realm, like I feel like most authors do this, where they like if they have a mentor, older, wise figure, or like Merlin specifically, they tend to make him like very like all-knowing, omnipresent kind of person. So it's interesting to me that he's like supposed to be taken in that way, but also if he had that fault where he somehow didn't calculate all the way.
I mean, I would be really interested to like, or am interested, hopefully we get more insight into Merlin, because I feel like so far we mostly just get Arthur, and I think we get a little bit of Lancelot. Unfortunately all we've had is Arthur, but I also just feel like of what we've seen of, we haven't seen very much of Merlin, and I just can't believe that he was a good dude. Not that he wasn't a good dude, because again, it's all like it's not black and white, but like I feel like at some point we're gonna get to him and be like, yeah, he's trash, just like Arthur and the rest. You know what I mean? I feel like we haven't fully, no one has fully like put their like ire on him, if that makes sense. Like Nick very clearly is like, fuck Arthur, I hate Arthur.
Yeah, they revere
and Bree as Merlin. Well as like Arthur is the worst. But Merlin, but I don't even know if we've gotten to like revering Merlin. I don't know that we necessarily know what people think of him. Like other than just like the general like order kind of lore, but I don't know what Merlins think of him. You know what I mean? I haven't heard Cell really talk about Merlin other than like this is what he did and like he's my ancestor type thing. So I'm curious. Robyn is in the chat. She couldn't make it, but because it's her dad's birthday, so shout out Uncle Tommy, happy birthday. But she's
Virgo season. I'm like, what season is it?
Yeah,
Virgo
well,
season?
I guess it's but she was saying, because she's in the car, so she's listening, she said that the order oaths are kind of like capitalism, where they give the illusion of being the best way, but are actually only beneficial to a small number of people in power. Or like an opioid, it can be medicinal, but the side effects can be worse than what it's supposed to be treating. Yeah. I'm kind of getting that. And yeah, I could see it being side effects, and they're assuming that it has to do with that it's the Cambion's fault and not the Oath's fault.
Well, no, they don't have to have abatement on the
no, they don't have a yeah. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll learn more.
Curious.
Very curious. So yeah, so Bree, you know, is still going through it, despite Valak's kind of like world building info dump. Info dump is not really the word, but you know, he gave us some more info. Bree, so she's kind of like flashing back to Arthur's control of her body, as well as the regent's kind of violation of her. And so in her head, she's like, Cell's essentially done the same thing. And so she says that, she says, you're just like them. Cell is like, I'm nothing like them, is begging her to listen, but he's also very clearly, I wrote possessed, but that's not really the word, because it's not like
someone else
in his body.
Yeah,
it is him, but he also is like being kind of pulled by the demon part of his
he's
blood.
hulking up. He's trying to make he needs his phrase from Natasha Romanoff to keep him from
sun's getting low.
That's what the Aether shot's supposed to be. His Aether shot Natasha.
It's like, it's time to go to bed. Let's go to sleep. So he like kind of reaches for Bree. Valak steps between them and like knocks Cell back, crashes into the wall. I'm like, Valak don't give a fuck about his office. Like, you do not care.
That man must have money in the like multiple banks. Like he's
Come
got
on.
Cayman Island accounts.
He's
He is
like,
not concerned.
He's not worried at all.
I can have another you in a minute.
I know the place looks like it's falling apart. It's not really. I could get it together if I wanted it to. This is the aesthetic that I'm going for. So he tells Bree that Bree's misery right now is palpable. So he's kind of explaining that like Cell at this point cannot really control himself. And that her misery, and he's all up on her. He cracks me up because he's all like, with your misery is palpable. Like, get it out my ear, bro. Like, back up. And that Cell is hungry for it. He does say that Cell's demon isn't strong enough to take over. And then but he says, but if it were, he'd devour your pain like fine wine. Which choice of words. It's kind of,
he sounds very Hannibal Lecter. Like he's like, what is it, fava beans? Like he's just like at a nice Chianti. Like he's just like
yeah.
Like, you're not making it any better. You're just describing.
It's like, no. So yeah, but he does say that it's the King's Mage Oath in particular that's making him succumb faster. Like all the other oaths are fine, but the King's Mage Oath is particularly, I think, because it's so powerful. It's what's making him struggle so quickly. Which again makes me feel like the oaths are the problem. But it's not like he can break them unless we find out in Oathbound that we can oath break.
Oathbound gotta mean something.
Oh, I'm just not ready for that book. I'm trying to like I'm just not ready for whatever is about to come because they already show how like we already see how oaths are just like very problematic. So
entangling, like a quantum
entanglement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can only guess how they're going to get worse. But yeah, so we also as he's kind of like explaining what's going on with Cell, it's very clear that Valak hates the way the Order walks, talks, dresses, hates all that shit. Like, very much hates the Order, which is valid. You know, it makes sense. And it's also like, it's interesting to see, I think, how outsiders, like we've seen like maybe root crafters, but from them we've mostly gotten like fear. And kind of like, you know, the need to hide. Whereas like with Valak, he's very much like, nope. And you can tell Erebus that I said fuck him and his crew. Like, you know, you could take them to
and
that.
His
You
mama,
could take that to them directly.
And his daddy too.
Yep. He's like not even. He's like, no, I actually hate all y'all. So, and I also think it's interesting how, and like we'll see as the like time goes, how much he knows about the Order as well is really interesting. I did not realize the thing was going to change to me for both of them. That's hilarious. But yeah, so Valak calls Lewis to take Cell away. And then is like, tells him to give Cell another, or not another, well, I guess another ether shot, even though Cell didn't take the first one, but tells him to give him an ether shot.
Hard-headed. Like, when you need something, just take it. Oh, I don't know what's in there. Bro.
They saw you. They said, this is what you need.
You think they haven't seen your kind
was
before?
Like, you might want to try it.
Your own medic told you to go on and do it. And you over here being hard-headed for what?
Ridiculous. Look at you. So yeah, so tells Lewis to give Cell an ether shot and then to meet them on the roof. So then now Bree is alone with Valak. He also offers her an ether drink, and Bree is like, I'm underage. She's like, I can't just be, you know, drinking alcohol like
Imbibing.
that. And Valak is like, who's gonna arrest me for serving apple juice and magic to a teenager?
He said, "Who gonna check me, boo?"
He said, first of all, why would I give you my good liquor and like I don't even know who you are? You still ain't answering my questions. You still owe me.
You think
I'm breaking out the
you think I
he's
think
giving
that
the little
you think
the
I think
little
that
apple
you're a
juice.
grown up? You think,
Come on.
baby, you
Come
think I
on.
didn't clock you when you walked in the store?
Like you're getting Mott's, you're getting the little apple juice that looks like an apple, and I'll put a little ether on there as a treat. But you can't have nothing more than that. And he's also very clear because Bree is like, why are you being so nice to me? And he's like, look, I'm just Southern. Like, I'm just he said this ain't nothing else. He said we still got beef.
He said, "This is the bare minimum, baby. You walked into my house. I'm taking care of you. But please believe, do not get it twisted. We still got business to take care of."
We still have business. But while we do business, have some apple juice.
You think I'm not gonna be respectful of my own house?
Come on.
We are not Ironborn. We do not pay a salt price. Ah, man.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, but we do also find out that like the concentrated ether, because Bree kind of asked like, what will it do to a human? And so basically it just gives humans the sight temporarily. But at the dose that like is on the drink, it just gives like a little buzz. It's like alcohol in that way.
It sounds
but we
like
also kind of
infused seltzer water, like with like cannabis infused, like or like hemp infused. Like it's just like it's not gonna do nothing crazy. It's just
right.
a little bit of in the seltzer.
Just a little tingle. So then so as this is happening though, we like Valak keeps like zooming around like like trying to like intimidate her, which is really funny. But also Bree is too like emotionally wrung out for her to be scared. She's kind of at the point where she's like, I can't, I can't be scared because I'm dealing with the cell thing. There's too much information being thrown at me. And here he comes zooming from across the room, still growling in my ear or whatever. I can't like really be afraid. But he also, again,
if anything, she's probably, I was gonna say, if anything, she's probably just what is it? Not weatherized, but like she's used to a demon with zoomies because of Cell. So she's just gonna like,
right, true.
Okay.
That too. It's like, you do know who I've been traveling with, right?
This is supposed to surprise me? No.
Yeah. She's like, look, and she doesn't have time for this. Like, she's not. And he doesn't really either. So he says, he's like, so we handled Cell, but I still haven't handled you, right? Like, you still haven't told me what's up with this ether. But Bree, of course, doesn't answer. And so Valak's like, fine, we'll do it the hard way. So they go to an old elevator. But then Valak stops it midway to ask if Bree and Cell are exclusive. And I'm just like, be for real. He's not a serious like person. And I think that's why I love him so much. Cause cause he is intimidating, right? And you don't really know what he wants. And he's definitely like holds the power in this situation and is in charge. But he also is not serious. So you're just like, bro, why would this be the time to ask that question? And why do you need to know, actually?
Right. What you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Why is that necessary?
What will this information do for you besides give you more in your bank against Cell to use against him?
Right. but there's nothing really to say here, you know? And so Bree, essentially, she tells him that he's being rude by once born standards. And she specifically says once born.
Ugh.
And I just want to read this part because Valak goes off in a way that is like so freaking real. But also it's interesting because he obviously doesn't know what Bree has been through, and also still doesn't know the like
Who
truth
she
about her
is.
connection to the order, and who she is. So yeah, so he said, and the thing is, it's also interesting. Well, let me read it first. Okay. So, once born, Valak barks a laugh, tossing his head back. Oh, they have gotten you good, haven't they? The legend born with all of their honorifics and hierarchies, who gets power and who doesn't, who's worthy and who isn't. I've been around long enough to know it's all several dozen layers of assholery. There's a reason a dragon skull sits over our threshold. The pin dragon and his ilk are not welcome here. The King's Mage is lucky he's here suffering without his charge, because if the scion of Arthur were here tonight, this crowd would tear him apart. In fact, I'd kill him right before Kane's eyes just to be able to watch them both suffer at once with joy. So, very clearly, does not fuck with the order as a staff, record label, or crew.
But also, yikes
First
on
off,
bikes for Bree because she is the
she's
actual.
the actual, exactly, the actual scion of Arthur.
She's like, ooh, ooh.
He said, oh, okay, this is a little more dangerous now. I already knew it was dangerous, but I didn't realize it was this deep. But okay. And so
She's like,
then
don't be
Valak
suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Like, don't be suspicious. No,
literally, she said, I'm gonna just hide.
I'm gonna
Sort
zip,
of.
suck that in, just
Mm.
tuck that in a little bit.
Um So then Valak says, if you of all people have fallen for their falsehoods and perversions of history, then you're perhaps more silly than I'd previously imagined. Bree is like, me of all people. And Valak says, a daughter of the enslaved. Your ancestors were once considered property by the colonizers and their descendants, your body viewed as a means to an end. The order is still upholding 1,000-year-old traditions as if they had been written yesterday. So why would they release a 400-year-old one? Whatever knowledge or power these white folks have deigned to give you, whatever little oaths they've let you make, it's all a gesture. You've seen the region's true faces. They may allow one of their precious scions to share their night's gifts with you, but instead of honoring your sacrifice, they'll demand your gratitude. When you die in service to the order, instead of celebrating your life, they will brandish your death as evidence of their benevolent inclusivity. And I just want to say, it's very clear that this book is not like Bree, like the order is not the good people. Bree is not trying to be, nobody here is trying to be included in the order. They very clearly, like as a thesis to this book, I would say, or to this series, is the order very clearly needs to be dismantled. Like, if it wasn't clear when she was being like locked up chapters ago, no one is thinking that Bree needs to be inserting herself into the order. She's not even thinking that. On another note, though, it's very interesting, or not interesting. I think it's one of these things where, like, I think Bree's reaction to this is interesting, or not interesting, but like it could have gone a couple of different ways. Like, again, Valak does not know really what she's been through. He's kind of, a lot of it is guesswork based on what she said to Sel, and she could take, it in a different book, she might get angry and be like, oh, you don't know me, you don't know anything about whatever. But instead she's taking it and she's like, no, he's right. And I know he's right. And the only thing that he might be wrong about is the fact that he doesn't, or that he is wrong about, is that I'm Arthur. And even then they're not, they're not changing. They're not putting the tradition that they've spent all this time upholding aside. The fact that I'm Black is actually what is it, like I don't know, the 400-year-old tradition is bucking up against the 1000-year-old one, and it's winning is basically what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think it's interesting that she kind of doesn't take it as a insult and is very much just like, yeah, yep, true. But again, it's also nothing that she doesn't know already.
I feel like she's being very fair to the fact that like this is a connection that she knows she has through like rootcraft basically, and so
Mhm.
she's using the knowledge that she has of how rootcrafters look at the order to like kind of gauge like what she's going to expect to hear from people who are related to rootcraft in some way. And her reaction to him seems like she's like, what I got to like, one, who does she have to take up for? They would not take up for her. Why would she do that right now?
Mhm.
Two, it's kind of like what else would she expect from like people who have been like, you know, on the target list
Right.
for the
And
order for
like
such
it's
a
like
long time.
he's yeah, and like she doesn't know about his history either, but it's very clear that he has had run-ins with the order or has been burned by the order in some way. Um
But she does know that the order has been like taking out people who they think don't practice the correct magic, quote unquote. So she
mhm.
does know that like she's like I like she probably is like, oh, he probably has valid feelings. Like I don't know. Like if
Mhm.
he's not with the order, but he has magic, he probably has legit reasons to be like over them. Um
Mhm.
I think my
On top of the
thing,
fact that he's black and
yeah.
she already knows how they
Yeah, I think my thing is that like the tone he uses, I guess, is the thing is like whenever you don't know someone, especially I feel like this is as an adult who does not have like children in her life like that. You gotta be careful how you like come to like teenagers and children, right? Like if they
mhm.
don't know you like that, like they're gonna be like, "Excuse me, old." Like they
And
will read you back,
that's what
right?
I mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what I meant. It's less that he's less because we have also seen Bree like clap back at people who are technically right, but who came at her wrong. And so I was just like, oh, it's interesting because he's reading her, but he doesn't know her to read her in that way. Like he's
and
making a
also
lot
he's
of
like he's more
assumptions.
reading the order than her, but the way he's
Right.
reading in her part is like she really could say like, "You don't know me," but at the same time, it's like I don't know. I just feel like there's I can get I he holds all the power right now, and I think she at least has that in her brain. I just think there's something about the
Mhm.
fact of him saying that like the way that he's just like the order is that they deign to give you and then demand your
Mhm.
gratitude. It's very much like a Toni Morrison like they will treat you horribly and then expect you then like use your death and like expect you to like to use you as an example of like you enjoying it, like you going
Mhm.
along with the harm is how they'll use you to prop you up afterwards to say like, oh, she enjoyed all the harm we put her through, right?
Mhm.
um
And like, oh, look at how we like it's the tour, like, oh, we're the most diverse class of the it's like that kind of stuff of just like, oh, we're like, you should be grateful that we're including you in this institution. Um,
but we'll be like the whole time we'll begrudge you, we'll anchor you down, we'll pull you down, we'll make
mhm,
you feel like crap, we'll do this stuff, and then it'll all be to our own needs, and
mhm,
you'll have whatever input you put into it, you'll do it like in spite of us, not with
mhm,
our fulfillment of like helping you, as even as the sign of Arthur. And I think the reason why Bree honestly doesn't really respond in a active way is like, say the order actually treated her right, she would have more fuel in
right.
her
She might be
belt
like, well, you don't know. They
to
were like
er,
if she had maybe if they had if he had caught her like right after Nick had asked or had asked her to be his squire.
yeah.
Maybe maybe they would have caught her, but or maybe she would have been
At
more
this
like
point,
upset about it. At this point, that for me at this point, it's really just the tone of like, oh, you really gonna let him speak to you like that? But also, he's 100% right, like 100% correct, and I appreciate that Bree, and I think it also makes sense. Again, it's like at the point that she is in her journey, um,
mhm.
she's completely like. disillusioned by the order in terms of like, and I think particularly the regions. Like I don't think that she has any kind of like delusions about who they are and like how they treat her and what they think about her. So I think it's easier for her to just be like, yeah. But also she's not trying to like, she doesn't want to give him more information. So she literally just says thanks for the
Mm-hmm.
reminder and the warning, but she's not like, well, let
She's
me
not feeding
tell you.
into
You know what
it.
I mean?
Yeah.
She's just like, yeah, he's right. But I still don't trust him
But
and don't know
sometimes
him.
also you just let people say what they feel, so you can get a grounding and like what they're at, how they're gonna move. Like, what is it? What's the
Mhm.
energy they're gonna bring to you? Like she
Mhm.
knows that she rolled up here to this bar with all these folks she'll know who have issues with the order, with two order folks and Alice. She's gonna
Mhm.
let the game play out to figure out like what kind of grounding does she have to stand on to make any moves around these people. Like, are they going to treat her crazy because she's been with these order folks, or does she have somewhere to go because they'll find out she's a root crafter or whatever? Like, how far
Right.
can she? What does she have in her arsenal that she can use to get them out of a bad situation, basically?
Mhm. Yeah. So we get to the bad situation, um, which Valak goes immediately back to being unserious. I love him. He's very like
Very,
he's he's one of those like
very
Valak.
impish, very,
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's so funny because every time I'm just like, no, he's one of my favorite characters. He's hilarious.
very trickster,
Very
almost.
trickster. That's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah.
very trickster. Um, so they go onto the roof. There's this stage that's stained with blood. And then there's a waiting audience. The audience, so like everyone there is like the staff. Like everybody else is pretty much like, because I think he did last call, so like there aren't really customers around. It's just staff. And Bree kind of smells more of the like ether signatures layered. Um, and fine. So Cell is in a cage
Wait,
next
I
to
just
the
want to.
stage. Oh, go ahead. Which rhymes, but
I
that's
just want
what's
to say.
happening.
I feel like it's and I feel like you hit on the descriptors, but the description of this area gives me the battle stage of Shang-Chi, like the
Mm.
same kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
setup and arrangement.
Right. Yeah, like the where they were doing the like dueling and
Mm-hmm.
the fighting ring or whatever. Yeah, it does kind of give that, but like not as,
Open.
but like it gives that, but like on a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's also like just his staff, which is such an interesting thing. I'm like, how many people work here? Y'all be after work like, all
Right.
right, we got to go deal with these oath breakers or whatever, bargain
I mean, I'm
violators.
sure that the ring is used. I'm hoping that because the way that he wills and deals, I'm sure this ring is used, for bigger crowds on certain nights. But this
Mhm.
night, they're like, no, this is a private affair.
Exactly. This is a private matter. One of us was right, cuz dude does work there too, so it's like,
Depowered, publicly
yeah, it
depowered.
was mhm. Um so they so yeah, so Cell's in a cage. He does look better from after the ether shot. But he's in a cage. And Alice and Will are in the crowd surrounded by Valak's staff. Um Valak hops on the stage, pulls Bree with him, and introduces her, and everybody's booing. And then Alonzo the Warlock is also on stage. And he has his powers back, but they're like the powers of an Uchel. So he like kind of flits between like looking kind of like more like a boulder, and then to his human form. Um, and it's time for Death Ordeal. I don't know. Now I'm like, all of a sudden, Valak is Steve Harvey.
Right, I love that. I'm like, I love that we're going into game show. We're having like so many
it's
different
giving
elements,
it's giving Family Feud. Um,
or Deal or
and
No Deal,
so
like with a cage
yeah,
match in there. So it's like okay, all right, cool.
interesting. So basically, this thing she has to do. She either pays for the violation of stealing Alonzo's magic with a death. Valak is like, I don't care who. Could be you, could be one of your friends, could be, the choice is yours. Or a deal. And so Bree asks, like, what's the deal? And he's basically like, it depends. Do you have any information of value? Which is very clear. He's basically like, tell me about your magic, or somebody got to die.
Well, I want to know, because we didn't linger on this earlier, but like it's
Mhm.
interesting to me that Bree, whenever he asked her in the office about her or magical origin, that she decided to keep quiet. And I know why she kept quiet, right? Like she knows that she needs to be thoughtful about sharing out her family's business.
Mhm.
But it's interesting because it's like it kind of, because like she says that it's not, what is she says something. Oh yeah, so he's asking her about who made her arrangement. Like he's saying that it's like it has to be a demon deal for her to have her
Mhm.
ability, and she denies it. And part of me is like, is that because she like is trying to, it's just from a place of protection of trying to keep stuff quiet, or does she actually not see Vera's sacrifice as a dealing with a demon?
I don't think she sees it as a dealing, because I don't think it was. Like, I think we have to go back. It's part of one of the, or go back. We will get there, I guess. um, I can't remember. It's like I'm kind of iffy on it, but I feel like it was Vera was talking to her ancestors, and Erebus was like lurking in the back and just kind of like, I don't think that Vera went to Erebus for the power. I think he did his own little like sneaky stuff.
But I
Um
just I'm just so
but I
confused
can't
about Erebus being
remember it but I
around.
can't remember exactly how that worked, and I don't think Bree realizes that there was a demon involved. Either way at this point.
Right. I don't know, because like, but even then, I feel like this is me being very like black Christian or like evangelical Christian, oh that there's the devil kind of stuff. Like,
Mhm.
is being raped by a white man with a power bloodline not a dealing with a demon? Is that not the devil? Was that not an
I
arrangement?
think it's a devil, but I don't know if it's the devil. You know? Like, it's definitely evil, but I don't think it's the same. And I wouldn't call it necessarily a dealing, but like,
It was an arrangement.
I mean, it would. I don't. But I wouldn't call it that, because that makes it sound like it's something that she had
Like
power
she
over,
had
or like
power,
a
yeah,
say. You know what I mean?
insight, yeah,
Um,
she had a say in, yeah.
she had consent towards. Like, I wouldn't necessarily call it that. But I do think in this case, especially because this world has like literal demons, that it's like, yeah, that was evil, but it's not.
So she like it's a literal translation versus a like
Yeah.
figurative,
Yeah, they're
like
talking about literal
perhaps.
devils or demons or whatever.
I mean,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying. I wonder if Valak, if he knew the truth, if he would see it figuratively or literally. I guess that's what my question is.
Well, okay, I think I'm confused in terms
Because the
of.
way that they do deals, like how he describes deals to me, also have questions about that, about how demon deals work.
Uh-huh.
Because this is all stemming from my questions about demonology. Because how does demon magic work for deals? Because if Jonas had made a deal with Kizia for her powers, right?
Mhm.
Would he be making a deal with her for her powers? Would he be making a deal with her? Like, would they have to share her powers? Would she still have her powers and he would just be able to have some of them? How does that work? Or do you see a broker to just have access to demon powers in general? Like, is it a one-to-one power set? Like, it's a mirror. You have one demon who has one power set and then a person who wants that same power set, and then you make a deal between those two people? Or you make a deal wherein the human can have power from the demon realm.
I think, well, let's keep going, because I think I don't think that it fully answers your question, but I think I can, like, going off of that, I can answer your question, sort of, or
Okay.
give a theory. Not necessarily, I don't know if it'll be the answer.
Yeah, like I think we're all gonna be theories. These are questions that I'm like, this is probably a Tracy question, but I'm like,
Yeah,
demonology. Like I'm
yeah.
trying to like
How does it
put my
work?
map of demonology together, and like I'm like, wait,
Yeah, and I think that
question.
she's also, like, purposefully
Yeah,
keeping some things out, but, like, so yeah, so, um the game show is interrupted by Senator Anderson, who he's like coming up, he's like insisting on speaking to Valak. He won't wait downstairs. He needs, it's urgent, he has to do it now. So we find out that he's like asking, okay, we find out that he made an unregulated deal with a demon, and he's come to ask Valak to renegotiate. And so from what it sounds like he asked for immortality the first time around. Like, he's dealt with Varric before, and he went through the, like, uh regular channels, but Valak was also like, he said something about, like, not dealing in, like, permanence, I guess. So maybe he came to Valak asking for like, to broker a deal for immortality, and Valak said no. But this dude basically went behind Valak's back and was like, I'll just make a deal with the demon directly. He made the deal for lifelong riches in exchange for 5 years of life. And so he's saying, I did it for 5 years at the end of my life, but that's not actually what was in the contract. It was just 5 years taken. And so it's being taken from his sleep, which means that he can't sleep. Which then also means that his lifelong riches aren't going to last that long, because he probably
his
gonna
life
die
is
if
not
he
gonna
can't
last
go
that
to
long.
sleep.
Yeah,
His life is not gonna last long. So Valak is like irritated, and he's like, unregulated bargains never serve the weaker being. And so we go into, and he just kicks dude out. He's like, I can't do nothing with you. I can't, like, renegotiate this. You went behind my back in the first place.
I just wanted
And
to
he
note
makes
that
like a
like
comment about, like, white lawyers. He's like, white male lawyers who think they know better. Um
mhm.
and basically is like, it was dude's own, like, kind of like hubris, and that landed him in the situation in the first place, which, it is what it is.
He thought he could like read the fine print and be able to like negotiate himself into the kind of like contract that he needs. It's like that's why you don't play with the Fae. Like you don't make contracts
Right.
with people who have like
And I
magical
think
powers who have
I
been doing
think
it for
that's the
centuries.
kind of vibe here
Yeah,
for the demons in this way. And I don't know, like, it's not clear to me, like, which kind of demons make these kinds of deals. You know what I mean?
that's what I'm asking about the
And
demonology of deals. I'm like,
yeah,
how does this
yeah. And I'm
work?
curious
Like, is
too.
there
I
a
think
demon
part
who
of the
has the ability to have riches for their whole lifetime? And how does that work?
yeah. And I feel like part of the problem is that we've only up until now seen demons through the perspective of the order. And so the way that they, like, categorize them has more to do with them as seeing them as, like, an army, or like, like, enemy combatants, versus just like them on a regular day.
Mm-hmm.
Even though them on a regular day is like finding ways to consume misery and, like, negative emotions from humans, but it's slightly different than, like, being soldiers. Slightly, it's very different from being soldiers in an army, and you're, like, going to battle, you know what I mean? So I think that, like, that's also why it's not 100% clear, because I think that our understanding and Bree's understanding of the demons is still from that lens of, like, the order and their battle. um
Mm-hmm.
but I think my thought process was that they're kind of like fae, or like maybe genies, even, like, where they can, like, grant a wish. It's not necessarily that they're giving them their power, but more that, like, we can do this, we have our magic that we can use to do this thing, or, like, maybe use the ether to do this thing for you, but in exchange we get something, and the brokers are there to make it fair so that the
But
humans don't lose 5 years of their life from their sleep, I guess.
I just feel like there has to be, again, demonology. I feel like there has to be, I would love for there, and this is probably like universe, any unlikely Simon and Schuster publishing people who make these decisions, who may be listening. Like, I would like if there's going to be a like side companion piece to the series, a demonology lore book, like, or even like a short little book that gives you an understanding of the demonology of this world would be so helpful, because I'm like, some of the things we're getting into sounds like vampires, some of them sound like fae, some of them sound like they could be genies, like, so are they all just a big umbrella demons, and then there's these subcategories of different kind of demons that what's happening here, and I'm gonna have more questions that come up as we talk in this episode that kind of like underscore why I feel that way, because it's like, what's happening. I also want to note that, like, as like someone who's trying to be thoughtful about the way that literature works, I think it's very like, or just like storytelling works, I can't leave this moment without talking about the fact that Tracy made a very pointed decision to include a Senator Anderson, like someone of that power level, in this portion of the book, and doing dealings in the same manner that people who are vying and jockeying for power in the order are sacrificing to do stuff for things. And so it's not like, so one's showing that there's not just one way that people are willing to, like, humans are willing to make these kind of deals to get what they want, to be in positions of power, and that you never know who's done what to be in positions of power, but also that this Valak's group is just as significant and noteworthy for getting people into power positions as the Order is. So, like, you can't, like, not to look at them as a lesser group, because they're not. Like, that's how the Order
they're just
moves,
as
but that's not
powerful.
how we should look at them.
Right.
Yeah.
And Valak is not necessarily using that power to like shape politics or whatever, but it's not that that's outside of the realm of his capability, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And like the Order does like that has done the similar level of like, while this guy's life is going to end soon, like the Order has abatement, and they're the people who are even just vassals are setting up their children for the possibility of having abatement. So like there's similar, like there is no side that's better, and not with like a recoil. Like you're gonna get hit no matter what you do.
Either way, there's some kind of like,
consequence.
So then it's time to go back to Family Feud. Just kidding. Deal or No Deal. And Deal or Death. But Alice like turns up, or Alice pipes up and offers a bargain, offers a deal. She seems really nervous for obvious reasons. Valak calls her small human, which is very cute. But she says that she has information about someone cheating Valak out of money, and that she will tell him if he lets them go and also takes them to Lucille. So I think I appreciate Alice, because I think she was going to do this regardless, but I think that she chooses her words really carefully in this moment. She's like, after just seeing what happened with Senator Anderson, she's like, okay, I have to be very clear about what I want. So I'm not just going to say, let my people, let my friends go. Let me and my friends go. She's like, no, I want you to let us go. And I need you to take us to see Lucille. Like, both and so she whispers in Valak's ear. Apparently, one of the waitresses, Miranda, has been stealing vials of ether. And that's kind of how that chapter ends. Valak kind of ends it being like, well, did this, this night took a turn. Although I would argue it took several turns, but
right.
But yeah, but that's where that chapter ends.
And you gotta give it up for Alice. Like, few things beat cleverness and careful observation. And like early in that chapter, we see that she's being observant, like while they're there, and so getting to it here and seeing like Alice really it does do what she can do to make things, like, she's not just like sitting there taking up space, like she's doing her best.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you loving our commentary on Black fantasy stories and want to hear thoughts on more classic tales? Tolkien Black Folks is a hashtag and podcast where you can find all kinds of Black nerdy discussions about Middle-earth. Check out previous episodes on the BNC Presents podcast feed, and if you're a Black Tolkien fan, make sure to use the hashtag during Season 2 of The Rings of Power.
Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles, plus a professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective, which provides content through the lens of critical and creative fandom. In BNC's Discord, you can not only find a channel dedicated to all things Wizard Team, but spaces to connect with other fellow nerds about stories across media, genre, and more. Join a group read, find book recommendations, and maybe even get the juice to write your own story. Just go to bnc-community.com to join.
So, I made a note to self, note to agenda, that I want to take this moment into chapter 35 to opine about some underlying themes that we get in so many rom-coms, but also fairy tales and all these things. When it comes to romance and having someone who is like deceitful in the relationship, like something about the setup, like it's a fake dating, but someone's not telling the whole truth. You like the beast is the beast, and Beauty and the Beast, and ever after the like just Cinderella story, so, like, and Cinderella and ever after the movie doesn't tell the prince about like where she's from and like like she's he meets her initially and as her poor self, but then actually meets her like but doesn't realize who she is. And then whenever he meets her later, he meets her as she's trying to save someone as like her more ladylike self. And so that becomes the whole thing. So a lot of times in romances, what we get is that trope of someone is being deceitful in the romance early on in the story, and then at some point climax hits and that gets uncovered, and then everyone needs to like recoup, everyone's in their feelings, but somehow at the end of it all, like love ends the day. And like part of that love is being able to appreciate that someone at their weakest moments, when they're even if they're being deceitful, is usually for a good reason, like that there is a reason to trust and love and, you know, not hold that against them. And so into chapter 35, we get into the fact that Cell has messed up big time by mesmerizing Bree. And that's why I wanted to take a moment to opine about how like that romantic trope of deceit and that falls out, because it's an idea of like accepting people despite all their faults and like allowing for space of forgiveness and like also like understanding and kind of like being able to still have that love for them. And this all starts because because William and Alice can tell that Bree's been crying. They initially think that's because of Valak, but Valak's like, nah, look at your homie over there. And that's whenever she talks about Cell mesmerizing her. And both Alice and William are freaking out at the fact that he did that to her. And they're like, what is wrong with you? And they were like, for how long? And she was like, and Bree says, as long as we were on the air, like since we were on the airplane. this man has been mesmerizing me. And they're just
And that's like,
so icked out. Like the major
yeah.
ick is happening here.
And it's like, it's very clear. They make it clear from jump that like he wasn't doing that to them. It was literally only Bree. And so
Only Bree.
this whole time, Bree they haven't been realizing that she's been seeing something different or that she's been mesmered. So it's like, it is a betrayal of Bree first and foremost, but in some ways it is also a betrayal of them. And like one that I think, it's not as, I don't think it's as deep, but in a way it is, because in some ways it makes them complicit in like they can tell that Cell is going through it and Bree has no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so none of them, they think that Bree knows, so they don't say anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously she's not mad at them, but in a way it does make them like complicit in keeping that secret, because he's just not. Yeah.
I just don't think that I also think they just would not, as much as they know how Cell is, they would never, they don't think that Cell would do something directly to harm Bree. And I think that they are like questioning their judgment of him, because he
and
did
also then it's like
to harm Bree.
How far gone is he?
Yeah, to have done that. Like, where's your mind at? Where's your head?
And
So,
really, I think I would argue that it's more of a like teenager, like his prefrontal cortex is not quite developed more than the demon thing.
Yeah.
But the question is there still.
And it feels very much like, and this is one of my notes, I'm sorry that I'm bringing it down to DComs, but it's that time of the year and I'm gonna do it. So, like the reveal of Cell's glamour very much gave the love interest in Halloween Town being shown as like his actual like troll looking self and not the human boy self. And he was like, so like he wanted to hide it. And then she sees his face and she's like, oh, I didn't know. And like,
yep.
So like that's how I feel like Cell, like when I picture Cell trying to cover up his face, I picture that guy from Halloween Town and like his like very like arrogant I'm a human boy interactions with Marnie versus like his reveal at the end. Like that's what I see for Cell and Bree. But we're not joyfully laughing at this moment.
This is actually horrible. I will laugh really quickly, briefly at Valak. And like it's not surprising, but he immediately throws Cell under the bus. He's like, I didn't hurt her. Which is and it's also hilarious to be like, I didn't hurt her when you said you were hurting her to like you did this to hurt her to get to Cell. So like you had a role in the reveal on top of the fact that you just had her up on that stage talking about deal or die. So you can't say you didn't harm her at all. But he's like, you better look at, he said, you better look at your man. Like, don't look at me. He's so funny.
So we're not laughing right now though in the book because Alice and William are very highly disappointed in Selwyn Kane. And they're like, we will talk about this later, young man, because Bree's like, I don't have time. And so Valak takes this moment to say, yeah, y'all can all yell at him later. I do not want to be involved. Here are the Crossroads Lounge to expose dirty laundry, not clean it. Like, this is a Housewives line.
He said, no, I just spilled the tea. I'm not wiping it up.
He said, I am
that part
the bone collector. I am not the bone resetter. Okay? Like, no.
He is so messy. I love him.
I imagine Sheree being a descendant of Valak. Like, it's just...
Oh my God.
Okay. So, Alice lightens the mood a little bit and she's like, wait a minute, I get it. Because the crossroads, blah, blah, blah. And I just, for me, I'm going to get there. But for me, when I hear meet us at the crossroads, I think about Bone Thugs and Harmony. And I, like, so you won't be lonely. Okay. That's the significance of Crossroads, okay?
Mm.
But no, it actually is like, you know, a reference to a blues song where a magician can go down to the crossroads at midnight to meet a man in black who everyone is, you know, supposed to understand is the devil. And Valak is like, oh yeah, that old story. Everyone has so many stories about me. I can't even like be on top of them all.
He's like, it's a little exaggerated, you know, like I'm not the devil, but you know, I did do a little, so I did sprinkle a little bit, you know, that was my deal, you know.
You may call me the Salt Bay of these here crossroads, okay? I just do a little panache, a little,
you know, just a little bit,
just enough for you, and it's enough for me to have centuries old lore carried on about me,
literally,
because I'm that girl. I'm unique. That's.
I'm pretty sure now. I'm about to this post for Wednesday is literally just about to be like Valak and all of his alter egos, and we're gonna have Beyonce and Steve Harvey and Sheree, and I don't know, we can figure out some. It's like these are all the people that we think of when we see Valak, because this man, Anansi the Spider,
Valak energy, like big energy. This is Valak. This is Valak's big energy.
I
Trickster
stand.
Anansi. He's really he's the Anansi from American Gods giving the speech on the boat for like he's. Yes, Lena, we stand. We stand in unison.
No, Lena's also in the chat talking about she stands. We all stand.
We stand. Okay, and you know, and hopefully this is like a mirror reflection. You know what I mean? Hopefully, like we're picking up on what Tracy put down. Like maybe she was herself, you know, inspired by some of these folks that we're talking about in her building. So that we're just picking up on it, you know. So because Alice is the one who like picks up on this, Val is like, wait a minute, I like you, girl. What's your name? And I just love a moment of appreciation for Alice. Like he's like, she's over here coming up being clever with her. She's over here telling me about my business deals, and then she over here telling me about myself in a way that I enjoy. I love hearing storytelling stuff. He's like, I like you, actually.
And then she also, I think, throws shade at Cell as well.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, this is my kindred spirit.
She's a feisty little human. Like, okay.
Did I mess with her? Oh my gosh.
So as they talk about like his story about like being the bluesman that luring people in for musical talent beyond human imagining, he explains that greater demons don't need aether from physical form, but they do need it to feed. And raw negative human emotions and energies are delicious, but it's like a well-eating plankton. Demons spend all their energy feeding all day just to get a full meal. And Cell says, you lure humans in for demon food. You truly are scum. And Valak says, I am scum, but there are worse, believe me.
No,
for example, real. I don't do murder contracts while my competitors do. I find it difficult to assess the value of murdering a third party, especially when I don't know who the third party is. How do you calculate the bargain? The math is impossible. He doesn't do murder deals because he doesn't understand how to calculate it. Not because of a moral issue. He just doesn't know how to calculate it when he's accounting for it.
I don't know who. He's like, I don't know who really benefits from this at the end of the day, and how would I be able to? Yeah, I love him. He said, yeah, it's a little iffy.
And he's not even like, oh, I should probably keep that to myself, or like, you know, these humans, like, he's openly just being like, oh, you know,
because he can take them.
We can figure this out. Like, if you like, do y'all have any suggestions? Because I've been trying to figure this one out for a while. I don't even know. And what's funny is that like we learn we learn in the same, like, he's 205. So that music, that song about him learning, like, he's been around so long, and he's over here, like, he's probably been trying to figure out this question for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he's at
But
this
he
point, he's
was
like, I'm gonna
like,
just ask it to people randomly, see if someone gives me an answer. I
see if
don't
they throw
know.
me
Anything
something.
could happen.
But it also seems like he kind of gave up on it in the sense of like, yeah, I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
But not that it would never, not that he
It's
would
too
never
much.
figure it out, but just that he's kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like I can do other stuff.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's wild.
I would love to see him throw a staff meeting. Like, you just like, it's a brainstorm session, guys. These are the deals that I still need to figure out. What you got? What you got? What's up? Like, it's...
He also has a moment because when he says that he's like 205 or whatever, I know they like all kind of stare at him and they're all shocked. And he says something about it being kind of like a sore spot.
Yeah, And
I'm curious about that, like if we're gonna get deeper into that later.
Yeah. Valak, while he's talking, he takes us to Lucille, and wait, before I get there, he does clarify that he's the kind of broker who makes barters of musical genius, frozen youth, untold wealth, and artistic brilliance. Basically, if you name the skill, ability, or magical power that humans want, he can find a demon to help make it happen. That's where his specialty is. Not murder.
Mm-hmm. Right. So he don't know Kizia and Jonas. That's not his business.
That's not his crew. That's not his label. So when they get down to the first floor, they get to another level. The same place where they came in. Nothing looks the same. They go to a back area where they see an older blonde woman smoking a silver pipe, swirling in yellow aether, and then her eyes glow gold. And she exhales, her eyes turn brown, and she watches as Valak leads us to the hallway that loops around the main stage. And then whenever he goes to knock on the door back there, a woman's voice calls out, and she says, "I'm not to be disturbed when I'm with clients." And Valak is like, "We'll make it up. We've had a situation." And then a black woman with gray hair and braids, wearing a long green dress, exits and says, "I don't like being disturbed," Valachaz. And we learn that this woman is the grande dame, Lucille. So perhaps she's Karen Hoover. And she is his niece 7 times over. And he says, whenever Bree asks him how old he is, because he looks like a teenager. Like he looks younger than her. He looks like her analysis age, not Cell or William's age. Like that's how Bree clocks him.
I think he's somewhere in between, like or somewhere in that.
But she doesn't see him the same age as William.
Yeah.
And he says 205 with a heavy sigh, and everyone is gawking at her, and he says that balanced cambions are rare, and someone adds "and arrogant," which pot calling the kettle black, but okay.
Come on, first of all, you can't even be. Also, I just like even the fact that Cell is still talking right now is like,
bro, people should never laugh.
His arrogance. I'm like, you shouldn't be talking at all. You should
people should never
this
laugh.
should be a time for you to reflect. Like,
broke people should never laugh. Put that foot in your mouth. Keep it there.
Oh my gosh.
Don't even move.
This is not actually your time.
Like, Valak can be unserious. He's running things here. You, sir, have no room to be unserious. You just talking is pure.
It's like, it's too soon. Too soon.
So, Valak didn't have to say this, but in answer to Cell, he says, "We are not the same. I am a Martian. Do you not notice how easily I handled you upstairs? And you're running your mouth?" sir, he must not want. I think Cell has a death wish, and I don't want to go into it too much, but I feel like he does. So Lucille is very just like annoyed, and she's like, why are you bringing children to me? And he's like, well, you said to bring me any root crafter that comes my way. And Lucille's like, was that your power I felt earlier? It knocked me right off a reading to Bree. And Bree's more concerned with, wait a minute, I'm sorry. How do you know that I have root craft? She says to Valak. And Valak is like, I didn't until just now. Which again, trickster energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then a white man sitting on the ottoman behind Lucille raises his hand and is like, it's my session day. And they're like, okay, yeah, actually, yeah, just go on. And Valak yells, we'll make it up to you, sir. Like, and as he's leaving. And then Lucille huffs and then sweeps back into the room and tells everyone to come in. And as they're like coming in at the edge of the door and in like this dark area, Bree sees someone that she never thought she would see. And it is Mariah, who stares at her frozen with some tea in her hand. Because we're about to do some tea in this next chapter.
I love the way that we get to this part. Like it's like kind of like a roundabout way to just get back to some folks we know. I love it.
Yeah.
And I
love that it's like no spare parts. Like there's no parts that are just like. So no need to fear. Mariah explains why she's here. And that's cool. She's like, this is my auntie. And I help her during the weekends sometimes. And Bree's like, oh, okay, cool. The bigger thing that Mariah, her auntie, and her whatever Valak is to her want to know is, why are y'all here? What's
right?
I know we all know why we're here. Why are you
here? Right. Like Mariah is literally like, I was expecting, she was like, I felt it, but I was like, Bree is definitely still back at school.
In Georgia. I mean, in Carolina. Not. We're in Georgia. Yeah. What is this? So Bree explains that they're basically fugitives and wanted by the order. And that they needed to get away because of Bree's powers and something else. And then Cell adds that they need to lay low. Oh yeah. So one thing I want to note is that like I love how like this whole conversation with like Mariah and Lucille and Valak is just a back and forth of like sharing assessments, but in a way that is a read. So that's what reading is like assessing people in an entertaining way. And it is just so fun how it's going back and forth. And their primary question is why the F are Cell, who is a King's Mage, and William there with Bree, and what's up with Bree's root being so like much, like it's doing the most, being extra, and Bree's, because again she's trying to be thoughtful about sharing out her family's business. It's like, well, Mariah knows I'm still new to this, and the root that I make, it's my ancestors' power. I've only done it when I was possessed or scared for my life. I need to learn how to control it. And Lucille answers, if you keep blowing up like that, you'll have every demon at your doorstep and every root crafter nearby about ready to pull out their hair when you knock them out of alignment with their own ancestors. I don't know that we got it earlier whenever the doctor told, because she just kind of told us that like Dr. Hartwood just said like she like the other root crafters can feel whenever Bree does something big. I don't know that we actually understood that she was knocking people out of alignment with their own ancestors.
Like it's a wild thing. It's a very wild thing. And like it makes sense why Bree's like, yeah. And it sounds like Bree knows that, like in terms of the like what's actually happening. But yeah, it's very wild.
It is so much. And so Val is taking everything in, and she's like, the ideal thing for you, like what I recommend is that you go into volition for protection to learn and get yourself together. But I can't. This is something that we use for our network of root crafters. Like, I can't also recommend that you bring all these folks, especially them folks,
especially
all
the order members.
I can't recommend them folks go with you. I need a better. I really got to have a really good reason for that to be a thing, because
yeah.
And as she's like explaining that, Valak adds that like lesser demons, and so they've like, the order's known this, like the order's whole call and mission action is what they say, is that lesser demons have been crossing over to this realm at a greater frequency thanks to Davis, as if they are foot soldiers for the Camlon to end all Camlons. That's right, babies. The root crafter community uses the same word for the same crap that the order has called it, the Camlon. So like, say what they want about the whole order thing. Everyone uses the same terminology when it comes to the great calamity of like demons and like the other, like these two realms opposing each other with force.
Right. And I do appreciate that, of like, in the same way that Ether, has different words for it or whatever, or they have different things. Like, there are parts of it that are still true, in the sense of like, you don't want that many demons crossing over. We don't need, like, I think even Valak at some point, which he has a unique situation because of his business, but like, he's like, I don't want either to take over. Like, we need the demons, but we don't need all of them. We don't need like the big battle and wiping them out or whatever. So I think it's I like getting the perspective from people who are from the root crafters, but also like specifically to like people who are outside of the order.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because it's like, it feels like a carryover from Arthur's time for like what their skirmishes or whatever were called, like being something that like isn't notable enough for the centuries thereafter for them to refer to that as the same thing each time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's become like a common conception for what that is. So I appreciate that there's like terminology that is not just like everyone has agreed, like that's what that's called. We don't have to like debate about it,
and it's a serious threat too.
Yes. He also adds that there is a shadow court of demons who are supposed to be acting as a match to the order from the demon realm, so that whenever these two forces come into contact, they will be equally paired and matched up.
So I keep forgetting, like this is, I guess, would be my third read of Bloodmarked, and every time we get to that part, I'm like, oh, it's like it's brand new information. I'm like, oh shit, he's about to get bad.
It's just like, I think it's the only time we really we don't really hear it, like, because we have so much stuff going on with Bree that we don't really hear a lot about like the politics of like the realms of the different different realms or whatever,
And we don't get enough we just don't get enough from the others because they're so busy being racist. We don't actually like hear about like, oh, there's a whole court. There's a whole demon court for real. Damn.
Like, you could have led with that. But so
what's for y'all?
So to put further like insight into that. Self rejects it as a fairy tale, and this is coming from a place of like, this is something that like I feel like each of us, you, Robyn, and I have all like kind of pinpointed through different episodes of like how immersed into the order culture like Sel and William, who are probably the most radicalized of the order members that we actually see Bree spend time with. actually, like, they're so immersed they can't pull out of their immersion to see, like, they have been imbibing on the juice too hard, and they're not allowing themselves to see the possibilities that some of the things that they've been taught actually aren't all the way true, and they should be questioning them more. So specifically with the Shadow Court, Cell is like, these are bedtime stories that they tell little Merlins who think they can single-handedly win the war. Because this is, and it sounds like let me tell you about this time in high school. I was in AP history class, and we were talking about the Civil War, or like the preclusion to Civil War. And this white boy had the gall to ask, why didn't Black folks just get out of slavery? Like, why didn't they just leave? And I was like, and I was the only Black person in the room, I think. And I was just over it. Yeah. And the teacher got into it. But I was just like, they really sit here and are like, well, you could have just nodded. You could have just got out. Like, this is like Kanye, whole, slavery is a choice.
Right.
And I
was
can
a
understand,
choice, but it wasn't a choice of Black people. We didn't choose it. Y'all
talk
did.
About the enslavers who made the choice to be human traffickers and do all these violent acts. Talk about all the let's talk about those choices. But no. So I can see where, as a teen white kid or kid who has a savior complex kind of thing, where they're like, oh, I can go beat up the demons. Give me a sword and I got it. I can get Excalibur and save the day. And that's how Cell is kind of interacting with this. I'm sure when he was young, he was like, oh, I'm a power up so big, y'all ain't even gonna know. I can take on Camelot by myself. And they're like, no. And the Shadow Court is something that they're like, oh yeah, I can what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna infiltrate the Shadow Court, right? And I'm gonna and they're like, no, the Shadow Court doesn't exist. It sounds like the Merlin Academy or whatever there is, and the Order basically have the standpoint of these are the rumors that we've heard, but these are just rumors. No one can trust demons.
Yeah.
They're not even they're not even sentient beings. We shouldn't even pay them any mind. They don't know what they're doing. And that's racism. That's them thinking that as a species, the demons aren't able to have full thought. They're not able to build out governing functions. They're not able to do politics. And it's that is a shortcoming on Cell's side, that he again, that immersion, he can't take himself out and be like, well, maybe I should question that.
And I think it's interesting too that this whole time things have been happening that they've been told were impossible. Even from the beginning, they were when the who was it? I don't remember, but it was at the beginning of Legendborn. I think Bree was still kind of on the outside of it, but the they keep saying I think the Goruchels were not supposed to be they were a myth, or even the court, the demons coordinating, they were oh, it's they're working together, but that's impossible. And it's but how is it impossible? And it's so interesting how they don't question further. I'm if this was Camland is the big battle, it's not just y'all are overrun by mindless demons. Y'all aren't exterminate. You know what I mean? It's you're soldiers. So you're being taught in this very specific way. And it's not because the other side isn't coordinated. That's not, you know what I mean? It could be, it's partly because some of these people are not, not all of these demons are soldiers. At least that's kind of what I'm getting at this point. They're not all soldiers. So maybe that's part of it. But they're definitely intelligent.
Yeah, they're definitely way more intelligent than the Regent / the Order leads you to believe they are.
Yeah, and I think I'm also interested in what the Order's kind of intention is with making them not believe that those things are real. And maybe it's because we're in a new, if it's a modernization thing. you know what I mean? Like because I think with the Regents, it's very clear that they care more about the power that they hold in relation to human things and not necessarily in relation to like battling. Like they kind of see, like they clearly want to keep the lines, but part of that is to keep the power that they have and not necessarily to actually fight or stop Camlan. Like they're literally trying to cover it up right now. So I am curious if that is part of it. Is it's just like it's just lore, but at what point are you telling these kids that it's just lore, and at what point are you telling them like certain things are real, you know?
I wonder if they are telling them that it's not. I wonder if it's like slavery, where they're telling people that it's not that deep so that people don't question, right? Like they were saying Black people didn't have souls. They're saying that they weren't human. And so therefore, like putting them through all the strife, all the like violation, all the crap wasn't really doing anything because though they're not actually human, I can't actually feel it. And so like same for the demonhood, they're like, no, they're not actually sentient. They're not capable of doing all those things. So like that's the thing. And that's partially of what they've cast upon demons, like their reputation and their understanding of demons is that like, so like why there's such a recall for like people to be half demon or have partial demon in them is because, and like there's so much judgment against them, is because they see demons as less than sentient. And so they're like, you basically have a beast inside you, like how they treat like Native Americans as like like all the different things that they've said about different people of color not being humanoid, not being sentient beings. And that's part of their thinking. It's like you're not happy to kill someone that you feel like might be similar to you. You're ready to kill something that doesn't have anything in common with you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree. I think it's interesting what they choose to like tell these kids is real and what they choose to tell. And I think also really for the Cell thing, it's like y'all literally are these like people of legend, right? Like how could you then scoff at something being like, oh, this is a legend? Like all of this is fake. Nobody thinks this is
a bedtime
real.
story.
Like, what do you mean? All of it is. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So to not be like open-minded about that is interesting.
Yeah, I feel like at some point you gotta like close off your realm of possibility. You're like,
sure,
well, everything can be possible. I'm like, can it?
Right.
Is that how you function in the world? Is like you put a dotted line somewhere and somehow that's gonna be kept up for you, I guess.
Right. And you're like, you know what? Actually, that's it. I'm done. I don't want no more.
I drawn the line right here.
No more legends. No more myths.
Nope.
We're done here. It's over.
A Greek god came down. A Greek what? Are you serious? You can't be serious.
Nope. That's all fake. Yeah, fake mean, it's very interesting. I like mostly am terrified for when they turn up.
I just want to.
Because I know they're not ready.
I'm newsy. I want to know if the Morgans are in the league with the demons. Are they actually in a whole other thing by themselves? Are they actually the unproblematic heroes we need in this story? Like, what are they? And how much because I feel like no matter what happens, when we see them, they're going to have way more information about the Shadow Court than we've ever heard from the Order.
Maybe.
Because they've had
But also Bree's going to be with Erebus, so she might also just get stuff from him too. But yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of possibilities, and
there's so many possibilities. Like theory time that we don't have. Okay, so one day we'll have like a theory episode. Like
I know we need to just do a theory episode.
We need to do a theory episode, and we need to have like we need to do like a whiteboard with like the little red like.
Literally.
Sorry.
It's like, okay, so if this happens,
that means that this must be true. But if this doesn't happen, that means that this can't be true. But it could be true if this it happens instead. Like it just our whole
It's too many ifs.
All right. So speaking of iffy people, these Cambions, bro. So as soon as Cell says, that's what they tell little Merlin to think they can single-handedly win the war, Valak says, I bet it was you, wasn't it? And I'm like, can you not? And like, do you
He will not get off of Cell's neck.
Now?
He will not. He refuses to get off of Cell's top. It's great. I love that for Cell.
And I know I said it earlier that it just feels like they can't not do it, like it's in their nature, but really? Okay.
He's like the King's Mage. He would have killed Cell. He would still like to kill Cell. So he's like, look, at the very least, you gonna let me.
This is a very
drag. Let me.
If I can't drag him physically, I'll drag him metaphorically. Let's
exactly.
Go. So thank goodness a grown-up is in the room, and her name is Lucille. She may not be 205, but she's the grown-up here, and she says, "Shut that up. Quiet. Shut your mouth. I have appointments, and I don't have time to watch two Cambions snipe at each other." And thank you,
literally,
Lucille.
It's so real.
Goodness gracious.
I know you're my uncle, but you be getting on my nerves. You be wasting my time. Let's not waste my time.
And so she says, these stations are how we move root crafters whose powers are big enough to draw attention from the Merlins. So another theory note on the side, are we going to see other root crafters who have had run-ins and had to run away from the order?
I hope so.
Big power moves. Are there going to be other blood crafters?
I want it all.
Yes. So she says, we're hard pressed to use our network to help hide your friend and these two. I need a better reason than that you've got powers you can't control and the order's looking for you. We've got more than just rumors. And Camelot, as major as Camelot is for everyone to use the same, like for everyone to know what it is, they say they got stuff bigger than Camelot going on.
But it's also like, they're like, we literally use this network to hide from half the people that you brought here with you. So we can't just be putting them in.
It's not, but you know what? That's the thing too about like cultural gatekeeping. Like, we made this for us, FUBU.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for them. They got their thing.
No. They have their thing
over here.
In this case, they don't have their thing, but generally.
But they would.
They would if they
weren't Team Bree.
Yeah.
So not so much. Well, so you were getting set up. So no, but
yeah.
Will,
Well, he would.
Yeah. He would have. Ain't that like a white man?
Hmm?
Just like the gas station, like he would have been fine. He just would have. Okay. The root crafters are on high alert for the hunter. Just like what Jesse called him. Or the Great Devourer, as the demons called him, i.e. Kizia. He hunts root crafters specifically because of the generations of magical energy that root crafters have built up. So where Valak was having his Hannibal Lecter moment with the fava beans and like how much energy they can store, like how little snacks, like little morsels, regular ether magic is. From root crafters, it sounds like it's a heartier meal. It's a meal, not a snack for demons.
Or it sounds like kind of like bottomless mimosas. That's kind of what it gives to me. It's like, you could get a little bit from this person or whatever, but they got to tap in. They tapped in with their ancestors, so we could just go. That's what it sounds like to me.
That the picture of mimosa is just running, and it spills over, and you just maintain.
Yeah, they're like, nah, this is
Their Thor, like whenever a demon has access to a root crafter, they are basically Thor with a mug and like that Sorcerer Supreme magic, just refilling it up every time he drinks it down.
Exactly. Yeah.
So everyone's like, the hunter. So we all know that that's Erebus. We all know that at the end of this, Erebus is going to have access to the root crafter who everyone's interested in the most, i.e. Bree. So this is, knowing what we know, the rest of what we're about to have for the rest of this episode is, it feels like something in the chest. It feels
just a little bit. Yeah.
Just a little tight here, you know?
Yeah.
Bree's reluctant to share her family's Bloodcraft story because she knows they'll receive judgment, but she stands 10 toes down for her ancestors' decisions and owning their powers whenever Lucille kind of like pulled out of her. Because first Cel's trying to oh, let me tell you about Kizia, that's how we learned about the hunter or whatever, or the demon broker, the Great Devourer. And Bree's like, I'm gonna just go on out and say what's going on here. And she tells everyone that it helps that Mariah's like, look, auntie, my girl Bree here, her family doesn't practice in community. And her aunt's like, for why? And she's like, because they're blood crafters. And she's like, oh, girl. And Bree's like, nah, don't do me. Don't do them.
Right.
I'm here for them. And she's like, don't judge them. And Valak says, how do you even know? And she's, because because Lucille sounds like an older Black woman. She says bloodcraft is a sin.
Right, immediately.
And Bree says, I know. And Lucille says, there's no necessity worth its cost. And Bree says, you weren't there. You can't judge her. And Valak says, and you were? And Bree says, I saw it happen. I was in a memory walk. And he and Lucille can't say nothing to that. What can he say? You gonna tell me I see my own ancestors?
He shrugged. He said, I mean, if she says she saw it, she saw it.
Right. So Lucille concedes, not my place to judge your ancestor. You're right. But I can judge you all I want. Now, can you, girl? Do you think your power is worth its cost? So whatever the cost is, you must know by now. And Bree considers it, and she says, no, my ancestors had all the loss, multiplied and compounded and cumulative, all that running. Don't be scared, they told me. Fight. And she says, I'm not scared of the risk or hard work. I will fight what my ancestors wanted to fight but couldn't. I will make the power worth the cost by how I use it. And Lucille answers, bold claims, tall order. And Bree borrows from Cell and says, I'm aware. Which, okay.
She said, let me just pull that one right out.
Okay. And Lou, so Valak says, okay, this is what we're gonna do. If you can train Bree to call up her root on command, then she might be able to take the hunter down herself, because her power is the only power I've seen that rivals his from all that he's consumed over the years. We could have an advantage all around here by taking in Bree's group and helping her to get her powers together. So it's like, no, we're not asking for your help just so you can use Bree for your own ends. And Bree interjects and says, like, nah, it's actually a good idea. I'm with it.
I think it's a good idea, and also there's like a community minded there that like Cell doesn't have. Again, because in his head, like Bree is like, it's so interesting, like how they like where Bree is placed within like these different kind of like systems, I guess. So like to Cell, Bree is the king, right? Like she's the most important to him, or like just as Arthur. And so it's like, no, you're not just going to use her and do, that could put her in danger with your group. But Bree is like, these are my people, and this whole time I have been messing them up by not being able to control my powers. I've been exposed, like risking their kind of like safety. And so, yeah, I shouldn't ask for them to help me without giving something in return. or without, shouldn't ask them to protect me without protecting them in turn. And so like it's an interesting like contrast, I think.
It's also funny, not funny, haha, that Cell's like, I reject you using Bree, but also is like, I don't reject Arthur using Bree. Like, I don't reject like that Arthur is who she is, and that like she's gotta do what she's gotta do to be calling on Arthur. Especially whenever Nick's in trouble. That he didn't reject. He wasn't like, don't do it, girl. Don't go after anything.
He has so much unlearning to do. He's I think he'll get there, but he's not there now.
It's a long road. He's got a long way to go. Bree says, if the hunter is afoot again, I need to learn how to stop him, not just for the root captors, but for myself as well. It's only a matter of time before he finds me, just like he found my ancestors who had the same power. Legit. If your people had this root generating ability, then I'm certain the hunter was after them any chance he could get. I admire your ambition, and Valor has lived long enough to know when something or someone might be useful to the community. If we can help you gain control of your powers, you will help us all in turn by facing the hunter one day. And when you're ready, call it a bargain and exchange. Agreed. So it's interesting because it's like Lucille's not a demon, but they were like, "Nah, we're gonna still go make this like bargain, this deal." And I want it's not like they've wrote it down, but is that still binding? So I don't know if that's another thing to be.
I don't know if it's magically binding, but I think, it's, yeah.
That's my thing. Like, is that something to magically be concerned about her meeting at some point, right?
I mean, and then I don't think so, but especially because they do have Valak sitting there.
That's
worst comes to worst, he'll roll
and
up.
It's a
he'll
demon
pull up
establishment.
On Bree.
Yeah,
he'll pull up on Bree and be like, "Look, you're not about to. You made a promise." But I also don't think it's one that Bree would necessarily be.
I don't think this is gonna. Yeah, I don't. But like, what if it's an accidental breaking? Like, is there wiggle room there? Is something that we're not noticing in the wording that we'll have to come back to later? That's my question more so.
Yeah.
My other thought was that talking about like Bree getting sent on this mission with Erebus, like this is we're not even at the end of the book yet. Usually, whenever you get a mission for what you're gonna see the character do next in the a series, you don't really see what their mission is gonna be until like towards the end of the book. We're not even we're not even like towards like the quarter end of the book. We still have a decent little bit of way to go, and we're already set for what that's gonna look like, which I appreciate. Like the setup being how it has been throughout, but it's also interesting because it's like we know that the hunter has sought to put Bree and her family in his clutches for a long time. You said a couple episodes ago, whenever we were talking about how he saw Jesse but kept it moving, what that was about, and like he was like letting it marinate, let it just stay a little bit more. And it's just really interesting that someone as old as Valak is like, I don't know anyone else who has powers that can take him on besides her. What is that actually like? Valak can't take on the hunter? What is that? Like another demon can't? Why does it have to be someone with roots?
Well, they were saying that he be eating demons too.
Yeah.
So I think they're just like, he's devoured so many like root crafters, demons, whoever, that his power is just, yeah.
Does he take on their powers when he eats them? Like what
I think so, because it's consuming their ether, I'm pretty sure. So I think he like takes on that ether
forever.
I think so.
I need to know. Like. I need to know too many things.
He's just like, I need all the lore.
So they go head to the station. Well, first they go to the staff parking lot to get in their cars, so that they can go to the station house before they go to Volition that Lucille has agreed to do for them. And Alice and Bree get in Mariah's car with the understanding that they're all going to catch up. and William and Sel get into Jonas's car that they all arrived in, and Bree is like, "Look, I can't talk to Sel right now. I can't be in the same space with him. Like, I'm glad we had this hour ride to not have him." But before they get moving, Valak pops into the back seat with Alice and is like, "Hey, what's up? I'm going." And we learned that Valak, even though Mariah is related to Lucille and Lucille is related to Valak, it must be on her whatever mom and daddy side that like Lucille like whatever. It's not like they don't have the same ancestry, so like she's actually not related to Valak, but Black community, he's basically like it's uncle vibes anyway.
Yeah,
and he's like, whenever she's asked if they're related, she's like, "Not really, thank God." And Valak is like, "You're so sweet as a baby. Now you're just me." And I'm like, that is
was like, she got tired of your little tricks. She was like, "Look,
nah. Thank goodness this ain't my bloodline. I can't even tell you."
She said, "I'm sick of him. I've been sick of him my whole life." Well, at least once I knew better.
Right. Like he was amusing, and I was with it. And it one too many times he tricked me, and I never again.
Can't do it.
Keep it. So Bree's got questions, not the same questions I have, but questions nonetheless. Her questions are, I thought blood crafters would avoid Cambions. And Mariah sniffs and says, "We are not monoliths. Some of us do and some of us don't." Which makes it sound like there's some root crafters who are just like into bad boys. And like
it's like some of them are like, "Yeah, we mess with our Cambions.
No, I guess I mean, like I got a type. My type is Cambion. I don't even know what to tell you. Right? And Valak says some of us cast our half demon infants out to freeze it to death at night. So that's a very serious change. To like, okay,
right.
Alice is appalled and says, "That happened to you?" And he says, "Yeah." And she says, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, my mother was seduced by an incubus. Tells all the time. Demons love chaos, love making trouble. I don't blame her. An enslaved crossroads child running amok on a plantation might have been fine, might have made life 1,000 times worse." His eyes flashed red in the rear view. His eyes have been flashing this whole time we've been interacting with him. So it's like I think it's also partially like where you can see where his mother might have had trouble hiding his nature because if you can't help but to see his nature. And also when her life was already 1,000 times worse than you've ever imagined. So understanding that this man has been like, he's 205, but it's 205 for an African American man. It means that he was enslaved at some point. So it really grounds the conversation in this way. I need a moment for another one of my questions. I am so sorry. But like him explaining that his mom was seduced by an incubus, when by their definition that we've gotten so far for demons, they all sound like they're either an incubus or a succubi because they're all feeding off of energy. So what does that actually mean? Aren't they all either a succubus or incubi?
I think so.
Are some more vampire?
I assumed he was using it as a synonym.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for like people who suck.
You know what I mean?
Like energy.
No. Like he wasn't saying it as a specific kind of demon, but more that like just using it as another word for demon. You know what I mean? Or like making it more specific to that side because clearly, they had a baby together. Like she was definitely seduced. But I remember in Legendborn, like Will was explaining kind of like how Cambions exist and was saying that like they're part succubi or whichever one.
But aren't all demons?
I think they are, is what I'm saying, or at least all the like major, not the like little,
But the foxes
not
and
the
stuff,
not the
like
hell
whenever,
foxes.
but they were trying to imbibe on the magic too.
No, they were, but what I'm saying is I think that the way that like demons that can take like human form can do that are in different ways, right? Nobody's trying, I mean, I hope nobody's trying to nobody's being seduced by a hell fox or a hell bear or whatever. I would hope. But I think that the demons that have like human anatomy likely have more tactics that they can use, right? Because the whole thing is they feed off of like emotion and ether, and if they're feeding off of humans and they're feeding off of emotion, so yeah, so I think that's what it is. I think it's just like all the humanoid demons would also be classified as that, but they may not all use that tactic, or they might, I don't know. But to me it felt like just like another descriptor.
Okay. Demonology book, please. Demonology book. Him like giving this painful origin story, which he's probably had to tell people so many times. So he's kind of glib about it, but it's also like it's gonna strike all of them as it does. It strikes them. Everyone's kind of like quiet because he says what, and he looks for a moment like he could be a college age boy out for a joyride, but he's not, and everyone kind of feels that in that moment. And Bree says, it's a wild and random thought, she says, and he says, I love those. And she asks, was your mother's name Pearl? And then he says, yes. And how exactly would you know that? And then she says, the memory walk, and then explains that whenever we saw her see someone giving birth in a slave cabin, that was actually with a baby with glowing yellow eyes, and she names all the different people who were there. That was Valak. And Valak is like I said, I don't blame her. Bondage is no way to live or die, for that matter. And then he doesn't speak again. And I just, again, Black person feeling the ancestral weight, very like resonant, serious thing. But also Black folk who are not serious because of those things.
No. And that's why I was like, Valak is such a good like representation of that. Like she really put her foot in Valak. I don't know how she like what happened in her head where she was like, oh, I need someone like this, and just like the death, like it's so.
But let me be unserious. That's why I'm leading up to me being unserious for one moment.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead, do it. I was like, I just needed to. I was like, no, because he is. He's got all that pain, and then I gotta be a joke.
So after this scene where he's like, to live or die, for that matter, I'm just like, I was like, I couldn't help but to be like, I hate slavery, from the scene from Insecure.
Literally.
That's how I feel. Like, why? Why does it have to be someone's story? And the stories, this is a fictional setting. This is real emotion.
It's real life.
Why?
Yeah. I mean, I love that, like, it doesn't, like, the book does not shy away from that, and it's also, like, very clearly the like, that's how we got here. Like, this is the legacy, and we're dealing with people who are 200 years old, and we're also dealing with people who are, can walk through the lives of their ancestors. So it's just like, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I love this book.
And I hate slavery. I love this book.
And I hate slavery. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. All right. So who's your MVP?
It's unanimous. It seems like Valak.
Yeah. I said Valak.
I made an MVP because I don't think we get him a lot later on, and I want to make sure that like he gets his flowers whenever we do have them.
Yeah, same. Robyn and Lena also made Valak their MVPs. I agree. I just feel like he's so well written and he's so entertaining. and he also like is this entry point for like a new side of this world, and not even the root crafters. Like before we even get to the root crafters, the fact that he's connected to them is also like dope and like important. But I think just like we see more about these like in quotes unauthorized ether users and like how people can and do live outside of the order, and like that's not the only way you have to like access to this magic. And he's just hilarious. He
great. Really is. And I don't know if I've had like, no, someone fact check me, but I don't know if I've had any other character appear where I've had so many different Beyonce songs for. Like Energy, Alien Superstar. Like
literally. He's just me, myself, and I now. He's
I will have some more. By the time next, I'm like, you know what? And this one too. And we're gonna have that one. Boop. Like, no, I just love it.
He's great.
He's it.
Benched.
Because I hate slavery. Colonizers.
It shouldn't be funny, but it is.
This is what being Black is.
Yep.
I hate slavery. I hate so bad. I hate the colonizers so bad. Oh. Oh. And the order are colonizers, so they can get it too. That's, colonizers broadly, the order specifically. They can all catch hands. And yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I ended up benching the Hunter / Erebus. I was like going back and forth because I kind of wanted to do the order, but then I was like, nah, I kind of want to make it specific. And I feel like this man is literally like preying on root crafters, with some like demons on the side and whatever. But like he's preying on root crafters and has been preying on Bree's family in particular for a long time, hundreds of years. And so yeah, I felt like now is a good time to bench him, especially because we get more information on him. And he's kind of, it is one thing I do appreciate. Like even though we don't know that he's Erebus at this point, like he is like this kind of like, he kind of hovers over the entire, like he's in the entire book basically. But yeah, that's why I ended up benching him. Robyn also benched the order, and then Lena benched Cell, which is also valid.
I wasn't here last week. I will have to go back and update with the MVPs and bench. But someone Kane.
Yeah.
First of his name,
this is not his best. He did not come as his best.
Selwyn Kane. First of his name. King's Mage. Bree's possible romantic interest. Get that out of here, sir.
He did. Oh, he was doing the most. He did his big one.
The most.
He'll make up for it, but yikes.
Yes. And with that, we conclude this episode. I hate slavery. Wizard Team. Could you imagine us renaming the podcast Slavery?
I hate slavery.
Thank you for listening. Join us next week when we discuss chapters 37 through 39.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you would like to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com and follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create.
Bye.
Bye.